Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Kansas City Profiles presented by Easton Roofing. Kendall Gammon has been and done a lot of different things in his still young life. A fantastic young athlete, he used sports to get away from a troubled home life. He moved on to Pittsburgh State, where he was good enough at the Division II level to attract attention from the National Football League. An offensive lineman by trade, he soon would be a specialist at long snapping while always still playing the offensive line as a backup during his time in the NFL, which extended from his career with the Pittsburgh Steelers to a lengthy time with the Kansas City Chiefs, eventually becoming universally recognized as the finest long snapper in the National Football League. He went to the Pro Bowl. He spent 15 years in the NFL before deciding that was a long and great career that he would bring to an end. Subsequently, he has had some personal struggles, but also some personal highlights, great ones, as he has used his time and effort and life to become a motivational speaker, the Chiefs color announcer after a stint as the sideline reporter, and obviously also many different things, including being a juggler, which he uses in his speeches as well. He also is the author of a couple of books and soon many more to come. Kendall Gammon has really covered the waterfront in his life, which continues to grow and thrive and actually inspire many, many others. A great conversation, a candid conversation, an emotional conversation with Kendall Gammon, straight ahead on Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing. We're here with Joe Spiker, the president of Easton Roofing. And Joe, you worked for other companies in the construction industry. What inspired you to start your own company in Easton Roofing?
Well, you know, Danny, when you are working for somebody else, you oftentimes don't get to see the project through from beginning to end, and you don't get the final control over the customer experience. And I wanted to build a place where people can come and get work done on their house and not have to worry about being treated the wrong way and get a good customer service experience start to finish.
The company slogan is "Where Integrity Matters." Why is that so particularly important to you?
Well, for us, what that means is treating each other with respect at work, treating our clients with respect, and making the right choice, especially when no one's looking. So when you're presented all the time as a contractor with choices that have to be made, are you going to make more money on this if you cut a corner? And we just wanted to make a place and a slogan that said to our people and to whoever is our customer, we're not going to do that. We're going to make the right choice regardless of profit.
Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. Sumner One is the company to make your office maximize efficiency. Their family of companies make up one of the largest independent dealers of office technology in the Midwest. They are proud to bring the best service and technology to top companies across the region. Sumner One can help your organization run more smoothly than ever. Sumner One printers, copiers, MFPs, managed print services, document management, infrastructure design, IT services, disaster recovery, and business continuity. Welcome to the one place where everything works. For more information, call Carl Little at 913-752-2256. I was duped, and I recommend you be next. For better or worse, the ultra-realistic impression of me sits now in my wife's office to spook her on a daily basis. So what is Doob? D-O-O-B. It's the keepsake of a lifetime, a 3D-generated, incredibly lifelike figurine. 66 cameras take an image at exactly the same moment in any pose, and state-of-the-art 3D technology transforms that into exact replicas of you, anyone you know or love, a pet, whomever is close to your heart. Create lifetime memories with a Doob. Visit their Facebook page at Doob 3D Kansas City, or better yet, see their incredible creations. Visit their location down on the plaza in the heart of it at 231 West 47th Street in KC Mo. Doob, be next. Kendall, it's a pleasure to get to talk to you and learn more about you. And let's start off at the very beginning. You grew up in Rose Hill, Kansas.
Yes.
Not exactly a metropolis,
no.
But from the time, give us an idea of when you became coherent in your first memories of growing up in a small town in Kansas.
You know what? And actually, I grew up in Mulvane until the fourth grade, then moved over to Rose Hill, like you said, and finished there. You know, I think I think a lot of small town kids, you know, grow up dreaming about wanting to play some pro sport. And for me, it was always football. I liked the Cowboys, Roger Staubach, Tony Dorsett, and I was going to be a running back. Clearly, with my running prowess, that was not going to happen. But it was always in my mind that I wanted to play a professional sport, and I took, we may get into it, I took a little bit of a different path there, but I remember, playing ball as a third, fourth grader and just, loving it.
Yeah. When you're in a small town, there's not any people around. Everybody knows each other's business.
Right.
What's that like?
You know what? It's good. I like it. I joke about the fact that you come to a four-way stop because there's no lights in those towns sometimes, and people just direct traffic with their fingers. It's on the wheel, and they just kind of move, and you tell him to go, and everybody waves at everybody, and it's a pretty cool deal. I think small-town living, there's a lot to be said for that in terms of growing up with that sense of community.
You've been pretty open about the fact that you suffered some emotional, maybe light physical abuse from your mother. When did that start, and how difficult was it for you?
Well, it was certainly very difficult, and I speak about it openly when I give talks all around the country. And that really went on from age 10 to age 18. I think when we moved over to Rose Hills, when it kind of triggered some things for her, as you know, Danny, everybody has a story. I have a story. My mom had a story. I didn't learn that till later on. Certainly, all the counseling I've done, in these last several years have helped me deal with that stuff. But being backed into a corner, being hit in the head by your mom, we all agree it's not supposed to happen. But most people don't talk about it. It had some issues with me, and I talk about it because it happens, along with some other things I dealt with. Literally having a gun in my hands at age 16, thinking, okay, this is going to be the solution, which is clearly you're not in your right mind. But I just chose to change my focus back then to the sports that we talked about and we started this with, and that's really what got me through. I was intensely introverted, but people couldn't see it all the time because I was able to mask it, and I was involved in so many different things, all four sports: baseball, basketball, football, track. I was in spring musicals. I was in the band. I was in the show choir. I was in the church choir. I mean, you name it, I was doing it. And sometimes you do that because you don't want to go home. And I think some of that was me. Now, it's a part of me. I've been told actually by some of the people I speak with that, if those things don't happen when I'm younger, I'm probably not able to handle the pressure that I did for 15 years in the NFL. So I don't regret it. Certainly, I don't wish it upon anybody. But as I said, we all have a story, and you learn to deal with it.
Was your mom a single mom at this point?
No, married. We were on a farm. It was actually where she had grown up, and so we moved back there. And I think that triggered some things that went on as a child for her. But my dad was a farmer, and it was tough times during then. Certainly, financial issues going on, and that's stressful for anybody. So that had a lot to do with it. And it's just it's one of those deals. There is no utopia, and certainly there wasn't for me 3 miles outside of Rose Hill.
So what was your relationship like with your dad, if you were struggling with your relationship with your mom?
It was very good with my dad. My dad was very loving. We weren't a huggy family, but I knew he loved me, and he was doing the best he could to support everything. And I think that's pretty cool. He wasn't aware of things that were going on. He was dealing with, the arguments and stuff that go on with money as well. And I certainly wasn't public about it. Even there, I was just trying to get away from it. So he really wasn't aware of it much until I wrote my first book, and he saw that. And I remember my family was a little bit taken back by it, but I was just like, listen, it's my story. It is what it is. I'm not trying to get back at anybody or anything. And it gives other people permission to understand that nobody's life is perfect. And, people look at me from the outside, and 15 years in the NFL, Pro Bowl, Super Bowl, wonderful family. And meanwhile, some of those things help take the toll to where, I go, I'm in 3 years into a divorce and had a lot of issues. And it just allows people to understand that everybody deals with something.
How did your relationship with your mom evolve over the years?
You know what? It was around age 16 when I got backed into that corner and then backed her back up, didn't touch her, but let her know that this wasn't going to happen again. I'd kind of made that decision, and it repaired a little bit the last couple of years of high school. But it was never great. She died of lung cancer the second semester of my freshman year, so not a lot of time to really recoup that relationship anyhow.
Right.
Don't have, it's just did the best we could. And she was doing the best she could also. I have no issues with her and what happened. It was just part of life at the time.
When did you realize you had, you're a big guy. When
Right.
did you realize that you had real aptitude in sports? Did it come to you pretty easily, and were you a good athlete pretty young?
Yeah, it really did. Even starting in Mulvane, just playing on a great baseball team and just up through high school and just having the ability to excel and everything, unbelievably competitive. I think it was my escape from a lot of things, and it was really my, I think, cry to get recognition in some way. And if for whatever reason it did come easy in all the sports, and certainly small town helps because not as big a sample size, but I always like to try everything. That's why I was singing and dancing and playing the piano a little bit, and also the saxophone, and I just always wanted to be involved in everything I could, and I was gifted with some things, and then I think your mental focus and your aptitude and desire to get better for mine was great, and I think that helped tremendously as well.
Was football always your first choice?
It was not.
So many people who I speak with, the professional athletes, they almost never say that the sport that they ended up succeeding the most in is their favorite. So what was yours?
Yeah, my favorite was basketball by far. Right. I had a goal. I remember having a goal in the 7th and 8th grade of when I got to be a freshman, I wanted to play on the varsity team. I didn't want to I just felt like I could do it. And lucky enough, I didn't play football actually my freshman year in high school because I had bad knees. Osgood Slaughter, and it was very painful. And I wanted to train for basketball anyhow. And I remember the coach after training, since I wasn't out for sport during the football time, him coming to me and saying, "You know what? I think you need to consider playing at the varsity level. I don't think you're going to do yourself any good playing at the freshman level." And that was the start of it. And I played JV the first 2 games. And a little bit of varsity, then like 3 quarters each game, and then the 3rd game on, I started from then on out. And I remember specifically being on the bench every time he looked down the bench those first 2 games, and especially that 3rd game when he put me in for good, and just staring at him. It's like, I need to go in. I wanted to go in. Now, I write about it in my book. You're a freshman playing on a varsity team. You're taking somebody's spot in some way. And I remember a few seniors, literally when the coach wasn't looking, I would literally get hit in the gut or in the ribs. And you know what? I just dealt with it, continued to do what I did. And basketball, though, for me was my love. But I learned very early on that there was no room for a slow white guard who couldn't shoot. So football was what I loved also. But I saw it as a way out. And even that, Division II, Pittsburgh State, I mean, it's not like that's a pipeline to pros. A lot of guys have gone there, but it's not the pipeline. I was asked to walk on at big programs, but, still, for me, it was a pretty audacious, they say the big, hairy, audacious goal. I kept it to myself, but it was always there.
What was your evolution as a football player? Where did you play and position and things like that? Yeah,
I started out playing running back and QB, and even did that a little bit as an 8th grader. Then I went to tight end in high school. Was almost slated to play QB a little bit because I always felt like I had the chance. But back then you didn't have your big guys play QB. But the tight end position worked out pretty well. And then I got asked to be a preferred walk-on. I had the ability at I think maybe Nebraska, certainly KU, K-State. I took an unofficial recruiting visit to Notre Dame, as a matter of fact, and had a good visit with Lou Holtz. Kind of crazy. He likes, if people don't know, he's really big into magic. So he just about went nuts when he realized I was a juggler. And so I was juggling 5 objects in his office, and he was just going absolutely crazy. So I remember that. But ultimately, I had 2 partial scholarship offers from Washburn and from Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh just made sense for me at the time. Francione was there. They had the big winning streak going, and I was able to go to Pittsburgh State University. I redshirted a year. So for those 5 years, we were undefeated, lost in the playoffs. My last year, we lost a game, but we won the national championship. So my entire career, Danny, I practiced after 1 loss. And that's a pretty cool deal.
That is a pretty cool deal. Now, what was the transition as far as where you played and how you played at Pitt State?
Yeah, so I promptly went from tight end to eating my way into offensive line. I still remember that the Domino's number down there was 232-3050. So,
so this wasn't, you weren't just trying to gain weight to be a lineman. You were an overeating tight end.
Yes, I was trying to gain weight to be a big tight end. That's what I had in my mind. In my mind, I worshipped Mark Bavaro with the Giants. It's
right.
Like that's me, except I couldn't run. And I ate my way promptly into offensive line, and they said, you get a chance to play quicker if you play, either guard or tackle. I was like, I'm all in. Almost started my freshman year, redshirt freshman year, didn't. And then for my sophomore year on, I started at guard, and I played tackle 1 year, then guard. The last 2 years was all league, all 3 years, all American my last year. We won the national championship, and people think, because I was a long snapper, that I must have started that when I was young. I was messing around in practice, Danny, my third year in college. I was curious how it rolled out of your hands, and I got caught doing it. And they realized I could do it better than anybody else, and that's how I ended up being a long snapper.
That's a very interesting story. So you come to the end of Pitt State, and while it wouldn't have happened now, you did get drafted. So obviously, so when you finished up in college, did you feel like you still had that? I mean, you realistically had the chance for the dream that you'd always sought out.
I did. I was about 280 pounds at the time. I went to college at 225. I was a very, what I thought was a good offensive lineman, not as good as I thought I was, but I could long snap. And actually, a guy who used to be with the Giants, Vinny Serrato, who was a director of player personnel, I think he came in to time a guy by the name of Darryl Wren the year before. He was taken in the third round from the Pitt State Gorillas, and they saw me, and he's like, he pulled me in the office of the coach. He said, "You know what, son, I watched some of your stuff. You might be able to make a living doing this." I was like, "Oh, whatever. I'm an offensive lineman, whatever." I hated long snapping because I was. Let's be honest, I was fat, and I didn't want to run down the field at the time. And the next year came, and we got to the end of the year, and I actually, over break, I got a letter from Scouts Inc., and I was invited to the Combine in Indianapolis. First long snapper that was ever invited to the Combine. I was rated as the third best snapper in the nation of all, Division I, Division II, Division III, everything. So I went to that Combine as an offensive lineman and as a long snapper, and I came out rated the number one long snapper in the nation. And what that got me was getting drafted in the 11th round by the Pittsburgh Steelers, which of course is a free agent nowadays. But this is what's even funnier to me in terms of getting drafted. The Steelers back then, they had a very iconic sportscaster, the voice of the Steelers, like Mitch Holthus here, the Chiefs, but it was Myron Cope.
Right.
And he had this very distinct voice.
Distinct voice, to say the least, a funny voice.
Yes, Myron Cope.
Right.
And he had yoy all the time. And he... what's funny is 11th, 12th round, those guys don't exactly stick all the time. The Steelers, they would let him take the 11th and 12th round picks. So I wasn't even picked, Danny. I wasn't even picked by the Pittsburgh Steelers coaches. It was by Myron Cope,
wow.
291st person taken. So right away, feeling very good about myself. But yeah, as they say on Dumb and Dumber, so you're telling me there's a chance. And
how much did they pay you for this chance? As an 11th round draft choice.
11th round. I got a bonus of, I believe, $11,000 to sign.
Okay.
So big money at the time.
You can buy a car with it.
Well, you could. Actually, what I bought was a ring at the time for my future wife, and but I just wanted a chance. If you said, we're just going to give you a box of cornflakes because you're going to get a chance to play, I would have been all in.
You had a college sweetheart type of relationship that led to your first marriage.
I did, yes. Leslie and I met in college, and we had two wonderful boys, Blaze and Drake, and unfortunately that marriage dissolved 3 years ago after 24 years, and certainly I had a lot to do with that. Not my proudest moment, honestly, and it's hard to talk about, but you have to go on. Mistakes you make in life are not a life sentence, and I've grown from it, and she was a great wife. She was a great mom, two wonderful boys, and but life goes on, as I said, and so now I'm just moving on with this phase of it, and I had a lot of issues I had to deal with, and it was tough. I've been in counseling for 3 years. I'll go the rest of my life as long as the insurance holds out. And I'm not embarrassed about that because people need an outlet to talk. I speak all over the country. I talk on communicating with emotional strength and how that goes to your leadership and development. And I'm just all about growing as a person. And that's what I continue to do. And for me, I've heard it said, which is, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And I had a lot of success. I'm not sure I was fulfilled all the time. But when I get on stage and I make a difference with people and tell my story, that's fulfillment. That makes me feel good about what I'm doing, because I think ultimately the biggest thing that people want to do is make a difference in the life of somebody else. And if I can do that, then I think I'm doing my job on this earth.
As you look back on it, how long would you say you were happy in your marriage?
We were happy, it's tough to talk about. I've not had that. I think a good deal of it, 21, 22 years. I don't know. I mean, things were starting to mount, and I have to be honest, some of the things that go along with the NFL in terms of the pressures and how you deal with it is tough. I don't think that helped. I made some poor decisions, and I needed an outlet to talk to, but I thought I had it all handled. And I think anytime in anything you do, when you think you've got it all figured out and that you don't need any help with anything, that's when things really start to go haywire. And that's the case for me. And you wish it didn't happen, but again, as I said, it's not a life sentence, and you've got to move on with life.
Our guest is Kendall Gammon on Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing. We'll take a time out and start to talk about the professional journey of Kendall Gammon, which obviously led to great success, Super Bowl, a Pro Bowl, as he mentioned, and on into, well, we won't call it later life yet, but that comes your way next, right here.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Looking for a truly unique escape from your normal entertainment or corporate team-building regimen? Stay tuned for an exclusive offer only for Reasonably Irreverent listeners. I'm excited to tell you about an extraordinary destination, the Exit Room, located in the heart of beautiful downtown Lee Summit. The Exit Room is a distinctive entertainment option that offers a cool alternative to the normal couples night out, family get-togethers, and corporate team-building events. The Exit Room is a one-of-a-kind boutique escape room catering to special occasions and corporate team-building events, and is unmatched in the Kansas City metro. With 5 individually designed and varied escape room adventures, your party or employees can unplug from their electronic world, interact with one another, match wits, and ultimately escape the humdrum of the ordinary. The Exit Room adventures cross decades and centuries and create fascinating fun. I know the owners well. They are local folks, their staff is warm and friendly, their lobby is inviting and beautiful, and their adventures are award-winning. Check online. There are over 1,000 reviews, and note that they are a rare 5-star ranked business. Visit their website and Facebook page, and any of my listeners who books online at theexitroomkc.com using the promo code ClinkScale19 gets 10% off any ticket purchase. The Exit Room in Lee Summit. Unplug, interact, and escape.
There's no need to get a case of the Mondays every week, not during football season anyway. Hey, this is Matt Llewellyn from the 23rd Street Brewery, and we are the place for Monday Night Football. Food and drink specials every week, and all new televisions always at 23rd Street Brewery. The hardest thing about Mondays now will be getting through the workday, although waking up on Tuesdays might be a little bit tough. But remember, watch all the Chiefs games, NFL games, every game at the 23rd Street Brewery.
Are you thinking of starting a new business? Does your current business feel stuck? Or are you just trying to grow what you already have? Running a business is a lot of work, and it takes the right team to make it all happen. If you're looking to grow your business, call my friends Ben and Greg over at Fuego Consulting. They put together a company that can help you reach your business goals. Whether you're looking to get online, build a social media strategy, or rebrand your business, they can help. Call Fuego at 816-663-9695 or visit them online at fuegoconsulting.com. Fuego Consulting. Let's grow your business together.
For many people, a family law case will be one of the most difficult experiences in their life. The law firm of Kenneth McRae will help you through it. Personal and effective help from Ken in concert with you will develop a unique strategy for your unique case. As Ken always says, divorce can be civil law, not civil war. Licensed in Kansas? Visit McRaeLawOffice.com or call 913-972-4765.
Our guest is Kendall Gammon here on Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing. So after Myron Cope drafts you Talk about your first taste of professional football when you went to
to
camp, and big dreams, obviously, but obviously a bit of a long shot too.
Yeah, there's no doubt. But I remember it was the first or second day of camp, and I'm playing offensive line. I think I was playing guard at the time. I played center and guard there, and I pulled and I hit Greg Lloyd, and he didn't like it, especially coming from a rookie. And we, he went after me a little bit, and I didn't let anything happen. I just got back in the huddle, and I heard some of the offensive linemen said, "Man, you can't take that." And I knew I had to do something. So the next play that I had a chance, I just went after him, and we got in a fight. And I was like, "There's no way this is happening." Which, I mean, in the NFL, fights are so stupid when you've got pads on and you've got a helmet on.
Right,
I was
right.
like, to a degree, you've got to save face. But after that, it was fine. Actually, the next day, believe it or not, he came out and apologized because he was just ticked off because I got the best of him on a play, and I understand that. But training camp is I mean, it's stressful. I remember so many times sitting there with the roster and saying, "Okay, he's gone. He's gone. Circle him. He's got a chance. Who am I competing with? Where am I at? The depth." And they say it's a numbers game. It really is. And fortunately, I was very good at my one craft, which was long snapping. On my best day, I might have been an average offensive lineman, but I was a great long snapper. For a period of time in the NFL, I was considered the best, I believe. So, very proud of that. But that first preseason, it was tough. I remember the second game of the year at New Orleans, the first away game.
So just to interrupt, did you quickly become the long snapper, or was that your route to making the team? Or
yeah, absolutely. My route was I could be I was considered the best long snapper coming out of college,
right.
But I was 285, 290 pounds, so I could be a backup lineman as well, because back then they didn't have just long snappers.
Right.
I was kind of on that edge with it. I was proud of the fact that when I came out of the league, everybody had a long snapper. I helped make it, I feel like, a specialty position. But, yeah, that was part of it. And I was competing with a guy by the name of Dave Harbor. He'd played for the Washington Redskins for 3 or 4 years as just a long snapper, essentially. And I had some poor snaps. I had a couple. I had one snap that bounced on a punt my second game of preseason in New Orleans, and I was shook. We had a rookie head coach by the name of Bill Coward, which might sound familiar to some folks around here.
Right.
And I was 5 yards away from the sideline coming off, so that means that his chin was in my face right there because it was very prominent. And he lit me up and down, and I remember it rattled me enough that in the second half I actually skipped a field goal snap, which I could still to this day do those in my sleep. And it was the worst thing that happened to me at the time, but it was the best thing because it really made me learn to lock in. I didn't play my third game. They told me that as we were warming up, and then the fourth game we locked in. I had a half. The other guy had a half. Whoever snapped the best was going to get the job. I locked in like I'd never locked in before, and like I would lock in the rest of my career for 15 years and 243 games. And I truly believe, those things that we go through, they prepare us for the future. And that I really thank Cower for how he treated me, honestly, thickening my skin and getting ready for it, because a lot of things that go on in the NFL. So it was a stressful time, but one I'm very proud of.
Did you have any period of adjustment to embracing, which clearly you did, being great at that one craft, but not in some people's mind playing football?
Right. Yeah. You know what? It's funny. It was really long snapper was the kind of the last position in the NFL that they were trying to get by with without having really truly a specialist, and I helped bring that in, and other teams did, because it was the last thing that teams were doing was trying to block kicks and taking advantage of poor snaps. And rephrase the question for me. This is the hit in the head too many times.
Was there any period of almost mourning that you were just becoming a pure long snapper?
Well, I never was until really the end of my career, because I was always a backup offensive lineman or a backup tight end when I lost weight.
So you were still practicing as a football player.
Oh, I was up until my last 3 years when the squad got bigger and the taxi squad got bigger. I was always doing scout team reps and taking second team reps and everything. And I literally played. in the first half of a Jets game my rookie year at right tackle. It's a funny story. I actually played against Dennis Byrd, of course, his story with everything.
Right.
But I remember coming in there because we had a couple guys hurt, and I was the eighth lineman at right tackle. And I remember Neil Donnell was the QB, and he comes up and he comes there, he looks over, he's like, "What are you doing in here?" I said, "Hey, you know what? They sent me in. I can't help you." Now, what I think's funny about that is they had a TE twist game on both sides. Watching it in film later on, me and the right guard picked it up. The left side, which had a Pro Bowler, they did not. So I remember them being amazed, but. There was a little bit of a chip on my shoulder because I wanted to be a football player too. Right. And I was always pushing towards that, and that really actually spoke towards the bigger problem of some things I had to address here in the last several years with my childhood and what went on, which was always trying to be the best and get not recognition, but just this sense of accomplishment that I belonged with stuff. And so that was tough, but I embraced it later on and the big thing, fortunately, was the team recognized that it was important, and so that was a big deal for me. And certainly, being recognized and going to a Pro Bowl, made it nice as well. But I was always trying to be an offensive lineman. Back then, I weighed at my heaviest, year 5, I weighed 310 pounds. So if it wasn't bolted down, I was eating it, and looked like I'd eaten a small child back then. But even with that, I started to get to an area where they were afraid I'd get my hands hurt if I was playing.
Right.
And so even if you could back them up, they didn't want you to do that. So I wasn't practicing as much as offensive line. At that point, I literally lost weight. I went from 310 to 275, Danny, during a season. This was when I was in New Orleans. And then lost a few. When I came to Kansas City, I played the last 4 years of my career at 250 as a backup tight end. Now, I was a backup tight end to future Hall of Famer Tony Gonzalez. So the only thing we had in common is we were carbon-based forms of life. After that, our DNA diverged greatly, but I could come in an emergency. So I was always sitting in. Meetings, and that served me well because, of course, I do the color voice for the Chiefs radio network with Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs, and people think, well, a long snapper. It was like, well, I was an offensive lineman and a tight end, so I was in all those meetings for basically 15 years, and so even if you're not out there all the time, you got a good taste of it and understand everything going on. So it really served me well.
And under some iconic coaches, you played for Bill Cowher, you played for Mike Ditka, you played for Dick Vermeil, obviously. I mean, that's some real serious training right there.
I did. I played for Jim Mora for 8 games before he decided to take a leave of absence in the middle of of my 5th year in New Orleans. Played for Herm, of course. Played for Gunther. He's who brought me to Kansas City. Of course, he passed away earlier this year. And I did play for a lot of good coaches and around a lot of good guys. Jack Del Rio was a linebackers coach and strength coach, good friend of mine when I was in New Orleans, and I've reconnected with him lately. And got to know Vrabel a lot on the NFLPA board, and he's, of course, the head coach for Tennessee Titans. And you hang around the NFL for 15 years, you get to know a few people.
What I always wanted to know what it was like to have a job where perfection is the only standard.
Well, and it's interesting you say that because I always talk about it as perfection is not the only standard. You cannot be perfect long snapping. You can always get better. It can always be quicker. It can always be located a little bit better. But the perfection is in the consistency. So consistency in and of itself is perfection.
Right, I know. That's how you become great at something is by, you want this precisely there, or you want to take a tenth of a second off. But you can't make a bad snap.
No, exactly right. No, you're exactly right. So you had to be consistent. People always ask, how did you manage to stick around 15 years and not have a bad snap? And I'm just like, by not having a bad snap. I can remember before the Super Bowl, somebody interviewing me and saying, actually, I think it was Sam Nover there in Pittsburgh, PA, and he said, how does it feel to go into a game where the only thing you can do is be the go to the game? There's no way to get recognized for doing your job the right way. And I said, you know what? You're completely wrong. I mean, who's to say that I don't make a great snap, which I will, and go down and take an angle and make a tackle on Deion Sanders and cause a fumble or something like that? Then what? He stopped the video and he goes, you know what? I apologize because I hadn't thought about it that way. Now, to go forward a little bit. Deion Sanders is a lot quicker than I thought, so I did not take that angle, and I did not make the tackle. But my snaps were perfect, and I did help, as I say, in my whole career. I always talked about the fact as I'm running down there, I would herd them to other people. I was kind of the sheepdog. I always thought that tackles were showy, so I let other people have that chance. But I did my job to the best of my ability, and you've got to understand, if you're secure within yourself that you're doing the best job you can and you're making a difference with other people, then the outside noise shouldn't make a difference. It did for me for a while, but I've come to terms with that.
Did you literally not make a bad snap in your entire career?
I did not. I mean, I had some snaps that I did not like.
Do you remember your worst snap? I mean, you didn't have a snap that didn't created an issue ever, but do you have one that you're like, ooh, I got away with that one?
Well, the worst snap I had was it was in the preseason game. My second preseason game. Otherwise, everything was always okay. I don't know that I ever had a ball skip. I might have had some low. And it's kind of funny. Most punters, if you snap them a low ball, they will get their best punts. I don't know why it is, but I've seen it over 15 years, even with others as well. So, if I was ballsy, I'd throw a low snap all the time. But no, I did that. Is interesting with Dustin Colquitt, who of course is still the punter here with the Chiefs and was my teammate for a couple of years. He preferred snaps at his head. And
right.
That's a little bit.
Well, that's a riskier.
It messes with you, yeah, because you don't have as much room for error up here. Because generally, you're looking from the shoulders to the knees. You've got that strike zone you're looking for.
Right.
I would snap to one side of the one hip or the other, depending on where they were going to kick the ball, and try to spot it like a pitcher in baseball to a degree. But throwing them up high, that took a little bit. Took a little bit of gumption, and even middle of my career, I used to look when I snapped, and then I realized I could snap better, and then I could see who I was blocking better if I didn't look when I snapped. So I started doing that year 7 or 8, 6 or 7, somewhere in there. And those first few games, you're going out on a limb when you get the target set, and then you don't see it when you snap. But it helped me be a better player.
All right, you come to success all through your career, and obviously the best, basically, that there was at the position. But you're playing a position that you probably can play for a long, long time.
Right.
I know there was a decision made toward it. How did the end
go down?
How did the end come?
The end came like this, which was I'd done 15 years, and
did minimum salary have something to do with it?
It actually did not,
okay.
To a degree. Well, you'll like this, I think,
okay.
Which was, with the salary cap, you could guarantee a contract. If you play on a series of 1-year contracts, then your salary cap number went down. It was created for veterans like myself, so the salary cap wouldn't be the issue with it. So
right.
you could get paid a certain amount, but you'd only count a certain amount less with
Gotcha.
that. And you could guarantee that contract. And they'd done that for me a few years prior. This year they didn't want to do that. They were going to give me a signing bonus, whatever. And I just said, you know what? I think this year I'm only going to play if I get it guaranteed. And you all let me know. I understand that you're not going to do that. So I appreciate it and thank you. And I think they were a little bit taken back. For me, it was important to go out kind of an empowering way of my decision. You've been in this a long time,
right.
Longer than me, which is most players leave the NFL or any sport with a chip on their shoulder. They either got injured or they're old and they don't recognize that their talent isn't where it is, and
right.
It's always on the club. We left with, I think, a mutual respect. I think they were respectful of the fact that I decided to call it quits. It was empowering for me. There was no ill will one way or the other. And, I took the next year off trying to find myself and, just decompress a little bit, and the next year I come on the broadcast. So it was a win-win all around. And I actually had a tryout that year that I retired with the Titans and also with the Giants because they were having long snapping problems, and they won the Super Bowl this year. So I was almost on that team because Lawrence Tynes was there then. But that's how it came about. And really what was happening, though, Danny, was and you see this common theme, what was happening was I was starting to crack a little bit. I was starting to feel the pressure of what would happen if things don't go right. How are my kids going to deal with it at school? Because I knew some other guys who'd had some issues with that. And it was starting to become almost sometimes a little bit more important to get home than be there and get my work in. And I just decided at that point in time there was something going on. But again, I think a lot of that has to go with, emotionally, I was starting to crack a little bit more than anybody knew, because I wouldn't let them, because I think I was embarrassed with it. But when I look back at it, it was 15 great years. I am proud of the fact that there was no ill will from either side. They
Right.
moved on, and it's kind of funny. J.P. Darsh, he came from Seattle. And he came down and took the job that I had, and I always joked, because that's when NAFTA was passed. So I always joked about the Canadian came down and took my job, and they thought that was kind of funny. But you got to have a sense of humor and understand. This is what I talk about all the time too. When I went into the NFL, which is, you're only renting that seat. And
Right.
the minute I got into the league, I was looking for a way out. Not because I didn't want to play, but because I knew it was the best temporary job you'd ever have.
You have done so many. So it sounds like your transition was better because you obviously did it on your own terms, and it was sort of a relief for you because you were starting to be under mental strain. So that's sort of different than than many other athletes.
Right.
So the transition sounds like it was better. You've obviously transitioned into a life where you are a lecturer, an author, and you have the will wall.
Uh-huh.
Will wall. And
Yeah.
talk about the genesis of that. Obviously is a tragedy, but it's maybe turned into something that's a positive thing.
Yeah, May 22nd, 2011, the Joplin tornado happened. A boy by the name of Will Norton was on his way home from his high school graduation with his dad at his side. They were caught in the storm, and unfortunately, he did not make it. He got sucked out of the sunroof. The seatbelt snapped, and a search 5 days ensued. And when they recovered his body, of course, he did not survive. So that family had lived next to us when we lived in Carl Junction before they moved to Joplin. So we had a personal connection there. And I remember when I went to see them about 2 weeks after his celebration of life. As I was about to leave, they asked if I'd go up to his room and take a look. There's something they wanted me to see. They thought I'd like to see. They had not been to his room yet, and so I walked up not knowing what to expect. And when I opened
It's okay. Take your time.
When I opened the door, I just began to cry, and obviously it affects me. You can see here.
Yep.
But I look at the wall across, and on one side is Will, painted in the kind of this graffiti fashion. The other side is the number 83, and the next to it is a ball. And the 83 was my number with
Yes.
the Chiefs. The ball was the ball I gave him when they were up at a game a few years prior. And I just never realized that he thought so much of me and whatever. And right there it began to swell in me. I wish there was a place you could go and tell somebody thank you for the difference they made in your life, or give somebody something to show the difference. And I always talk about, what are you going to do today to make somebody want to put your number on their wall and give them a game ball. And, I'll finish the story with this, which is all my years with the Chiefs. Before a game, after I warmed up, I would get a ball out of the bag, a former game ball. I'd go find a kid in the crowd and give them a ball. Home or away, didn't matter if it was KC and they had a Chiefs jersey on, or that dump in Oakland and they had a Raiders jersey on, and just make a memory. And it was all about doing something for somebody to create a memory for no other reason than it was the right thing to do. And that's a lot of what I speak about as well. And so that's where the Will Wall evolved. I had it was basically an online video social platform where you could take a video of yourself telling somebody thank you for the difference they made in your life, be it 2 days ago or 2 decades ago, and then it would get sent to this person via email or a cell number while uploaded. And I did that for a while, realized that Mark Zuckerberg had a little bit wider reach than I had, so I pushed it over to Facebook. But I talk about that, and it's really what it comes down to is the power of gratitude. Is number one, when people do something for you, take time to recognize that, and then also as a person, find a way to do something for somebody else that makes a difference in their life for no other reason than it's the right thing to do, and that's really what I try to base things on.
Besides your fine work on the Chiefs Radio Network, what do you think the future holds for Kendall Gammon?
You know what? I want to speak more and more. I had a goal to do at least 20 talks this year. I'm to 25 and counting right now. I had some monetary goals, and I think I'll get to those. I want to push that further. I wrote my life mission statement April 17th, 2005, and there's 5 distinct parts. I'll inspire everyone to identify and appreciate people and values in life. I'll demonstrate to all that it's okay to be vulnerable, and that it's actually power that helps break down obstacles in life. Real people aren't perfect. I'll allow all to not only see but know the real me. And then I'll touch people positively long after I've left this earth. And finally, the last one, which I'm big on, which is I'll help all realize that they're not defined by the job they have, but by the emotions they stir. And that's what I want to do. I want to stir emotion in people to help them have a better life in whatever way that is. And, let them know that, what I do and what I did from the outside looked perfect, but the inside there's a lot of issues. It gives them permission to understand that nobody is perfect. And I have a lot of fun when I speak. I don't know if you know this, but I juggled a center ring for Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus twice in my life, so I'm nothing if not a clown. But juggled since the 8th grade, and I use the metaphors of the juggling a lot with my speaking. I talk about, I don't believe there's anything as such thing as life balance. There's healthy life imbalance, and dealing with that, and the 3 parts of a person being their individual, their family, and their professional. And really, that's just my love of things. I like the speaking side of it. One thing we haven't talked about, but I am the assistant to the president at Pittsburgh State University. Right. I love that. That feels like mission work. I've been fortunate enough to help raise about $30 million the last 6 or 7 years for them, and it doesn't feel like work, but that's a job I took on the same year that I came on the Chiefs radio network and the broadcast. So I've been doing that 12, 13 years, and really just trying to help others in whatever fashion I can.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Kling Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Kling Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.